further cemented his belief that Kayla was most definitely not the kind of woman he could see himself growing old with, assuming, of course, he lived long enough to grow old. That was not a certainty by any means, given that he and his brothers worked covert ops off the radar from time to time when government agencies were tangled in red tape. Still, if he was a smart man, he would have waited until after homecoming to reassert that little slice of reality, especially since the rest of his brothers weren't expected to return from their latest mission until sometime tomorrow. On the larger scale, Jake was beginning to doubt he would ever find the right woman. His views were too old-fashioned, his requirements too stringent. To truly capture his heart, a woman would have to be fun and intelligent, angelic on the outside, but naughty on the inside. Someone who was not afraid to live life, but mature enough to know what was really important. She'd have to be easy to look at, too, but she didn't need to be beautiful. He'd had plenty of gorgeous, sexy women. He'd learned through experience that he wanted something more than just physical beauty. He wanted someone he could spend hours just talking to. Someone whose eyes would light up at the mere sight of him. Someone soft, yet fierce of heart. Feminine, but not needy. Someone who would be by his side at the fucking bar when he needed her, even if she wasn't speaking to him. The crowd roared their approval as Ian deftly flipped a fifth of Patron behind his back and up over his opposite shoulder. Even Jake had to smile as Ian took a deep bow. At least one of them was in the right frame of mind. Taryn Malone pulled the jacket around her a little tighter. The early October night had a bit of a chill to it. It wasn't raining, exactly, but she felt the lightly falling mist right down into her bones. It was Friday night. Her car was in the garage, out of commission until possibly Monday, more likely Tuesday with the Columbus Day holiday, and she had less than $10 in her pocket. It wouldn't have been a problem for most people. All they would have to do was whip out their credit card of choice and settle in for a few days of rest and relaxation in what looked to be a nice little town. But Taryn wasn't like most people. She didn't have any credit cards or ID of any kind. Because Taryn Malone didn't exist. Her hair started curling into loose ringlets as the mist fell upon it, a trait she'd inherited from her mother, or so she believed. She shivered as the cold curls bounced against her neck, knowing that soon she would be soaked through. What she needed was a warm place to dry out for a bit before she found herself a little nest somewhere. Her stomach growled hungrily. She reached into the backpack she always carried and pulled out an apple, thankful she'd bought the bag of fresh-picked Fijis at the little roadside stand the day before. This would be it for a while. A hot, satisfying meal would not be an option tonight. She looked longingly at the 24-hour IHOP across the street. Maybe tomorrow. She had no idea how she was going to pay for the repairs on her car either, but she didn't tell the mechanic that. He was just a young guy, maybe 18, apologetic because he couldn't get her car up and running again right away. The $100 in cash she had to pay for the tow pretty much wiped her out. Taryn sighed. She should have just abandoned the car and hitchhiked, though the way her luck was running lately, she would probably have been picked up by a state trooper. As bad as things were now, that would be worse. Avoiding anyone in law enforcement was imperative. She looked around the quiet, small-town setting. If she was in a city, she could find some kind of work. There was always someone somewhere who needed temporary help and didn't ask too many questions. But this place looked like Mayberry. Old, established, clean, nice. She shivered again, tossing the apple core into the park off to the left for some hungry squirrel to find. She paused, scanning for a place she might be able to hole up for a few hours. On the far end was a bench beneath a sprawling maple, but she quickly dismissed it as too visible. Anyone walking or driving by would spot her, and this was definitely not the kind of town where people would simply turn up their collars and pretend not to notice. But what about the other side of the tree? It was a possibility she locked away for later consideration. She was too restless, too anxious.